So I've wanted to do this for a while now, but I wanted to make a video essay about communication. And it's largely inspired by this guy named Robert Sapolsky, whose accolades I'll go into in a second. But he has a full lecture series that he teaches at Stanford, but it's available for free on YouTube about human behavioral biology. But we'll dig into him in a second. So this is Robert Sapolsky. He is currently a professor that teaches at Stanford University, but he teaches a course on human behavioral biology. But he's most famously known for this book he wrote called The Neuroendocrinology of Stress and Aging, and it's based on 25 summers worth of research he did in Kenya studying baboons and how they develop socially in their communities, and relating that to other primate species. Okay, so before we go too far down the Robert Sapolsky rabbit hole, one of the things I want to talk about with regards to communication is miscommunication. And that's mostly because I think in any conversation you have with anybody, I don't know, it's hard to quantify it, but it's possible that like 10% of everything that you guys thought you were on the same page about, you guys aren't on the same page about at all. You're saying completely different things, you had no idea. And I think miscommunications happen all the time, all day long, and we're not even aware of it. And there are, off the top of my head, there are three like common reasons why these happen, and we're gonna dig into those in right now, actually. Okay, so the first example we're gonna talk about is homographs or homonyms. Okay, Google, what's a homograph?
Homograph is used as a noun to mean each of two or more words spelled the same, but not necessarily pronounced the same and having different meanings and origins. Do you want to hear how homograph is spelled?
No, thank you. All right, so I think probably most of us remember from fourth grade what a homonym is. Essentially, it's a word that can sound the same or be spelled the same and have separate meanings. Here's just a list of some examples. So I'm just going to read some of them. Rita was too close to the door to close it. So we use the word too 3 times in there. All have separate meanings. Dan's wife said he should polish the Polish furniture on a regular basis. Polish and Polish. Spell the same, different sounds, different meanings. I did not object to the object in question. One's a noun, one's a verb. Object, and object, verb, noun. So after homonyms, there's just missing context that can make something be interpreted in a bunch of different ways. So here's a sentence: I saw a man on a hill with a telescope. That can actually have 7 different meanings. This guy breaks it down. So it could be, there's a man on a hill, and I'm watching him with my telescope. Or there's a man on a hill who I see, and he has a telescope. There's a man on a hill. No, there's a man. He's on a hill, and the hill also has a telescope. Or I'm on a hill. I saw a man using a telescope. And then there's a man on a hill, and I'm watching him with a telescope. So same word, didn't interpret any word. Same sentence, didn't interpret any word other than it was intended. It could still mean a number of different things. So that's just another example of how miscommunication is going to easily happen in the course of any conversation. Another example of how miscommunication can happen is just kind of colloquialism. So this is a little clip from a video of somebody from America, somebody from Australia, and somebody from the UK. They all speak English, but just because we grew up in different parts of the world, we actually call some things by different names, or we have different slang for things. So here's a quick example of that.
I'm ready. This is the first one.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what do we call this?
Sneakers.
Sneakers. What about UK?
Trainers.
Trainers.
And we call them runners.
Runners?
Yeah.
I love the simplicity of us.
But here's the interesting thing. The problem is more expansive than just, English-speaking countries and other parts of the world. Even within the United States, there's regional differences for different words. Oh, I didn't do anything yet. Did I?
In this series of videos, we're going to talk about regional vocabulary differences. What's the word for this in American English? The most common word for this type of sandwich in the United States is sub. But people in different parts of the country also use different words.
I'm from the Northeast, and I call this a grinder.
In New York City, we call this a hero.
I'm from Philadelphia. My friends and I call this a hoagie.
So this is one example of how American English vocabulary differs in different parts of the United States.
So, you could see that English-speaking countries in other parts of the world can have different meanings for words than we do, as well as English-speaking people within different regions of the United States. So this, I think it goes further than that. I think it goes, as minuscule or as closely detailed as your personal experiences can make you think of words differently. I don't really have any data to prove that, but there are people who I grew up with, lifelong friends or even family members that in late in life I found out they have different definitions of words that we are in our common lexicon than I do, even if it's slightly, but that would lead to miscommunications that we had. I think it's possible that beyond your region or where you are in the world, if you have certain experiences that other people don't have, which is the case for everybody, that could change your connotation to a word, how you interpret a word. So I'm about to show you 15 minutes of a lecture from Robert Sapolsky's lecture series on human behavioral biology. So if 15 minutes is too much of a time commitment for you, I'll just give you the gist of that video here, as well as tie it into my thesis for what I'm saying. So he talks about a simulation put together by Robert Axelrod that found that a method known as tit for tat was the most effective strategy for interacting successfully among social species. Tit for tat is just reciprocity. It's that if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. If you punch me, I'll punch you thing. The main flaw with tit for tat is that it's vulnerable to signal error or miscommunication. So if someone is a friend, but something they say or do is misinterpreted as non-friendly, then in the tit for tat method, we're going to start treating them like a foe, and we're just going to enter into this cycle of negative reciprocity. So to tie that into what I'm saying, if we are aware that miscommunications are happening all the time, then the next time someone says something to you that's upsetting, keep in mind there's a real chance that there was a miscommunication there, and that person might not have had any negative intentions towards you at all. I think in all communication, we should extend the benefit of the doubt a little further and not immediately assume that somebody was intending to harm us. And we should also be aware that the things that we say may be interpreted in a way that we didn't intend. So I think, extend the benefit of the doubt towards people, to not assume they were trying to hurt you, and also be aware that things that you're saying might be things that a jerk says and you had no idea. And you can get to, what the video ends up saying is what you want in all successful relationships is trust. You want to get to a point with any friend, family member, coworker, anything, where you know that person is not intending to hurt you. And so if they say something that's messed up, you can give them grace, and you'll have the same thing in return, and you'll have a successful relationship.
Of when to cooperate and when to defect. So game theory stuff. This was starting off in a world of people studying economics and negotiation and diplomacy and all of that. And that was a whole world built around this logic of when do you cooperate, when do you cheat. And what came out of there were all sorts of models of how to optimize behavior in terms of that. And the building block, sort of the fruit fly of game theory, is a game called the prisoner's dilemma. Prisoner's dilemma, sort of cutting to sort of getting rid of the details, two individuals are prisoners and they escape, and they're both captured and they're interrogated separately, and if both of them refuse to talk, that's great for them. If they both squeal, they both get punished. If one of them is able to squeal on the other one, they get a great reward. If the other one, what you get formally are 4 possible outcomes. Both individuals cooperate. Both individuals cheat against each other. Individual A cooperates and B cheats. Individual B cooperates and A cheats. And what you get in Prisoner's Dilemma is a formal payoff for each. What gives you the greatest payoff? Stabbing the other guy in the back. You cheat and they cooperate. You have exploited them. You have taken advantage of them. Isn't that wonderful? That's the highest payoff in Prisoner Dilemma games. Second highest payoff, you both cooperate. third highest payoff, which is beginning to not count as a payoff, but in a lot of the games is set up as the start of punishment. Both of you cheat on each other. Fourth worst possible payoff is you're the sucker, you cooperate, and the other individual stabs you in the back. So what the prisoner's dilemma game is set up these circumstances where individuals will play versions of this against each other with varying rewards and that sort of thing, and parameters that we will look at in a lot of detail, and seeing when is it optimal to cooperate, when is it optimal to cheat. When would you do this? So you've got examples of this, and this was the building block. And what anyone would say looking at this is, it's obvious. What you want to do is in some way rationally maximize your payoff. This is this whole world of homo economists, the notion of humans as being purely rational decision makers. And what you begin to see in this world of game theory is there is anything but that going on. And later in the course, we're going to see something very interesting, people playing prisoner's dilemma games inside a brain scanner, looking at a part of the brain that has a lot to do with pleasure. And what you see is some individuals activate that part of the brain when they've successfully stabbed the other guy in the back. Some individuals activate it when they have both cooperated, and there's a big gender difference as to which circumstance. So you just guess which one is going on there. We're going to see a number of studies like that coming down the line. So the question becomes, how do you optimize prisoner dilemma play? And what emerged at that time was the notion of all sorts of theoretical models and stuff. And then in the 1970s, there was an economist at University of Michigan named Robert Axelrod, who revolutionized the entire field. What he did was he took some Paleolithic computer and programmed in how the prisoner's dilemma would be played, and he could program in as if there were two players, and he could program in what each one's strategy would be. And what he then did was he wrote to all of his buddies and all of his mathematician friends and prize fighters and theologians and serial murderers and Nobel Peace Prize winners, and in each case explained what was up and saying, what strategy would you use in a prisoner's dilemma game? And he gets them all back, and he programs all these different versions, and he runs a round-robin tournament. Every strategy is paired against every other strategy at one point or other, and you look at what the payoff is. You ask, which is the most optimal strategy? And out of it, shockingly to everyone, because this was a computer teaching us optimizing human behavior, out of it came one simple strategy that always outcompeted the others. This is people sitting there, probabilistic ones as to when to cooperate and lunar cycles as to what to do. The one that always won is now called tit for tat. You start off cooperating in the very first round with the individual. You cooperate. If the individual has cooperated with you in that round, you cooperate in the next round. And you cooperate as long as the other individual cooperates. But as soon as there's a round where the individual cheats against you, you cheat against them the next time. If they cheated at you that time also, you cheat against them the next time. If they go back to cooperating, you go back to cooperating the next time. You have this tit-for-tat strategy. In the absence of somebody stabbing you in the back, you will always cooperate. And what they found was run these hundreds of thousands of versions of these round-robin tournaments, and tit-for-tat was the one that was most optimal. To begin to use a word that is not just going to be a metaphor, tit-for-tat always drove the other strategies into extinction. And what you wound up seeing is this optimized strategy. And it was very clear why tit-for-tat worked so well. Number one, it was nice. You start off cooperating. Number two, it retaliates if you do something crummy to it. Number three, it is forgiving if you go back to cooperating. Number four, it's clear-cut in its play. It's not some probabilistic thing. And what you get then with tit for tat is, suppose you're playing 3 rounds with another individual, you both cooperate the first one, you both cooperate the next one, you're playing tit for tat strategy, so you cooperate on this one, and they stab you in the back, and you can't get back at them because this is the last round. What you'll see is under lots of circumstances, tit for tat is disadvantageous, but what the soundbite is about it is, tit for tat may lose the battles, but it wins all the wars. This pattern of being nice, but being retaliatory, being forgiving, and being clear in the rules drives all the other strategies into extinction. However, there is a vulnerability in tit for tat, which is okay, so we have the technical way of showing prisoner's dilemma play. And first round, both individuals are cooperating. Second round, both individuals are cooperating. Third round, this one cheats, those are fangs. This one cheats, and this one cooperates. So the next round, this one now cheats, and this one goes back to cooperating, and we've just gotten through a scary thing that tit for tat solves, and it's great. Wonderful. What if, though, your system is not 100% perfect? What if there's the possibility of a mistake being made, of sending the wrong signal? What if there's the possibility of noise in the communication system, and at some point an individual who does a cooperative behavior, thanks to a glitch in the system, it is read as having been defection. So what happens as a result? This individual, forget it. Okay, what happens as a result? The individual who cooperated, but somehow the message got through as cheating, they don't know. Something got lost in the wires between them in translation. The other individual is saying, whoa, that individual cheated against me, I'm going to cheat in the next round. So along comes the next round, and that individual cheats against them, this one who's cooperating, because they've been cooperating all along, they don't know about this error, and they say, whoa, that person just cheated against me. I'm going to cheat in the next round. So they cheat in the next round. This one says, whoa, they just cheated another time, again and again and again, and what you get is a seesaw pattern for the rest of time. You've just wiped out 50% of the cooperation. And what you've got is tit-for-tat strategies are vulnerable to signal error. That's something that soon came out in these studies of Axelrod's. So it soon became clear, as soon as Axelrod began to introduce the possibility of signal errors, that tit-for-tat didn't work as well as another strategy, one that quickly came to the forefront. And that one, for some strange reason, that's the way it's shown, that one was called forgiving tit-for-tat. What happens with forgiving tit-for-tat? The usual rule, like tit-for-tat, if you cooperate, if they cooperate, you always cooperate. If they cheat against you, you punish them in the next round. Exactly same thing as tit-for-tat. But oh no, what if there's a signal error in the system and you've gotten caught in one of these horrible seesawing things? What forgiving tit-for-tat does is we'll have a rule, for example, that if we seesaw like this 5 times in a row, I will forego cheating the next time, and instead I'll cooperate, and that will get things back on track. I am willing to be forgiving in one round in order to reestablish cooperation after the signal error came in. And that one, as soon as you introduce the possibility of signal error, that one outcompetes tit-for-tat, because it makes perfect sense. It's a great way of solving that problem. So that was terrific. Tit-for-tat with the ability to forgive, and what you would then see is variability. How many of these do you need to go through before you forgive? What's the optimal number of seesawings? All of that. So a whole world of optimizing how soon you are forgiving. Nonetheless, the general theme being forgiving tit-for-tat outcompetes tit-for-tat when you can have signal error. But there was a vulnerability. There is a vulnerability here to this one, which is you could be exploited. If you're playing against, for example, a tit-for-tatter or all sorts of other strategies where they don't have forgiving strings of defection, and you do, what's going to happen is you're going to keep going back to cooperating, and they're going to keep stabbing you in your back. Forgiving tit for tat is vulnerable to exploitation, playing against individual players that don't have forgiveness in them. So what soon became apparent was an even better strategy, which is you start off with a tit-for-tat strategy, which is you are punitive, you are retaliatory amid being forgiving, clear, nice initially. You are willing to punish, and you cannot be exploited in this way. If and only if you have gone whatever number of rounds without the other individual ever cheating on you, if you've gone long enough without that happening, you switch over to forgiving tit for tat. What is that? That's deciding you trust somebody. You've had enough interactions with them that you are willing to trust them. This is the transition from pure rational optimizing to switching over. Forgiveness coming in there protects you from signal error. And of course, now a whole world of how many rounds do you need to do this before you switch that, as to what the optimal deal with that is. But again, this is a way of transitioning to solve the problem of signal error, but forgiving too readily and being taken advantage of.